Welcome to our latest explainer. When most people crack open the Hebrew Bible and hit the book of Leviticus, they usually see this massive, dry rule book. And let's be honest, they just skip right over it. But today, we're going to look at this text through a completely different lens. Drawing on the research of Reverend Dr. Antonio Arnold, we're going to see Leviticus not as a tedious list of regulations, but as a seriously fascinating ancient guide to living in close proximity to the divine. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture the tabernacle, literally glowing right in the center of the Israelite camp out in the wilderness. It perfectly captures the central problem that Leviticus is trying to solve. I mean, think about it. How could an imperfect, flawed, wandering ancient nation live safely right in the direct, incredibly powerful presence of a perfectly holy God? It's a ridiculously high-stakes situation.
To figure out the practical solutions to this ancient problem, we've broken down our explainer today into 5 distinct pillars. 1. The heart of the Torah. 2. The mystery of authorship. 3. The pursuit of holiness. 4. The sacrificial system. And 5. Priesthood and community identity.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, the heart of the Torah, positioning Leviticus.
Before we can really grasp the book itself, we need a bit of historical context. The Torah, or the Pentateuch, gets its name from the Greek word meaning 5 scrolls. But what's even more revealing is the Hebrew root of the word Torah, which is YRH. That word literally means to teach or instruct. This tells us right off the bat that the primary purpose of these first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible isn't just dry historical record-keeping. No, it's a profound instructional manual designed to teach moral and spiritual living, establishing the laws and the rituals that shaped an entire civilization. And right smack in the middle of those 5 scrolls sits Leviticus. It's the 3rd book. Because it is positioned right there in the center, sandwiched between Genesis and Exodus on one side and Numbers and Deuteronomy on the other, Leviticus acts as both the literal and figurative heart of Israelite worship. It contains the essential, beating core of their covenantal relationship with God. Moving right along to Section 2, the mystery of authorship. Who wrote the rules? Now, what's really interesting here is the question itself. Who really wrote Leviticus? We know where the book sits, but who actually wrote down these meticulous regulations? It's a question that has sparked intense debate among theologians and historians for centuries. Was it a single visionary, or was it a massive collective effort spanning generations? Well, there are 2 main perspectives we need to look at. The traditional view holds that Leviticus was authored solely by Moses, who received direct instructions from God during those wilderness wanderings. But on the flip side, modern scholarship, specifically the documentary hypothesis, introduces a much more complex history. This view suggests the text was actually compiled by multiple sources and priestly redactors, most likely during or maybe just after the Babylonian exile, right around the 6th to 5th centuries BCE. Now you might be wondering, why does that timing matter? Well, because during the exile, the Israelites were displaced, and they were deeply traumatized. They had this urgent need to preserve their identity and their worship practices while living in a completely foreign land. So under this view, this intricate legal code wasn't just religious instruction. It was an absolute survival mechanism to keep their culture alive. All right, that brings us to Section 3, the pursuit of holiness, separating the sacred from the profane. This is where we look at how the Israelites practically achieved divine purity in their everyday, messy lives. And this quote right here from Leviticus 19:2 is arguably the most important sentence in the entire book. "Ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." This isn't just a gentle suggestion, you guys. It is the core thesis for what scholars call the Holiness Code, which covers chapters 17 all the way through 27. The text is essentially telling the ancient Israelites that their daily, ordinary conduct absolutely must mirror the perfection of the God they worship. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they put that pursuit of holiness into daily practice. The strict dietary laws mapped out in chapters 11 to 16 separate clean animals, think sheep, cows, and fish with scales, from unclean ones like pigs, shellfish, and certain birds of prey. Now, these rules, they weren't just random or arbitrary. They served a huge purpose: to clearly demarcate Israel from the surrounding nations. By actively choosing what to eat 3 times a day, an Israelite was participating in a physical, everyday reminder of their unique, set-apart status. Which leads us into Section 4, the sacrificial system, the price of proximity. Let's explore how structured rituals actually bridged that massive gap between human flaw and divine perfection that we talked about at the very beginning. When you look at the different types of sacrifices here, like the burnt offering, the peace offering, the grain offering, and the sin offering, it proves that Israelite worship was definitely not some chaotic, free-for-all event. Not at all. It was a deeply structured, meticulous system of atonement and devotion. Every single sacrifice had a very specific function and a profound theological meaning. So, the real aha moment here is understanding the difference between the two main categories of these offerings. First, you have sweet savor offerings. These were designed to be pleasing to God. They signified gratitude, commitment, and peaceful fellowship. On the other hand, you have the non-sweet savor offerings, which were very serious, corrective measures. They address the urgent need for atonement, the cleansing from sin, and restitution. Together, these two categories worked side by side to maintain that delicate covenant between God and the community, perfectly balancing the joy of fellowship with the absolute necessity of repentance.
And finally, Section 5, Priesthood and Community Identity, the Mediators.
Let's see how this all builds together. Because, as you can imagine, a system this complex absolutely requires highly trained individuals to run it. And those individuals were the Levite priests. Descended specifically from Aaron, these priests were the essential mediators of the ancient world. They carried out the complex rituals, they handled the blood of the sacrifices, and they ensured the entire community remained compliant with divine law. And I cannot stress this enough, it was an incredibly dangerous, high-stakes job. If they performed a ritual incorrectly, the text actually lays out some severe consequences. We see that in the terrifying cautionary tale of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. The priests were quite literally the spiritual anchors keeping the community safe in God's presence.
Which brings us to our ultimate takeaway. When we look past the ancient rituals, we see that the Holiness Code was really a comprehensive blueprint for social justice, ethical behavior, and compassion. These strict laws, they weren't meant to be a burden. They were the essential social glue. They demanded that the Israelites care for the poor, deal honestly in their business, and treat their neighbors with profound respect. Ultimately, holiness in Leviticus isn't just about what you do at the altar. It is entirely about how you treat people out in the streets. And that leaves us with a fascinating final question to ponder. How might these ancient principles of community ethics and social justice apply to our modern society today? I mean, we might no longer have a physical tabernacle or a sacrificial altar, but the need for a community rooted in justice, shared identity, and compassion, that is just as relevant right now as it was thousands of years ago. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this gives you a whole new appreciation for the living, breathing heart of the Torah.